The scent of freshly baked cookies and the cheerful chatter of children filled Amelia's small, cozy home. It was Lily's 8th birthday, a day Amelia had meticulously planned to be perfect. Rainbow streamers draped the living room, a mountain of brightly wrapped presents sat near the fireplace, and a 3-tiered cake, adorned with miniature unicorns, stood proudly on the kitchen island. Lily, a whirlwind of pigtails and giggles, was playing tag in the backyard with her friends, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. Amelia was adding the final touches to a plate of fruit skewers when the doorbell rang. Not a polite, anticipated ring, but a sharp, insistent jab that sent a shiver of unease down her spine. She knew, with a sinking feeling she couldn't explain, who was on the other side. She placed the skewers down, wiped her hands on her apron, and took a deep breath. "Be calm," she murmured to herself. "It's Lily's day. Don't let her ruin it." Opening the door, Amelia was confronted by the sight of her mother, Eleanor. Eleanor, a woman whose presence always seemed to suck the air out of the room, stood on the porch, her perfectly coiffed blonde hair gleaming under the porch light, her designer handbag clutched tightly in her manicured hands. She wore an expression of practiced sweetness that never quite reached her cold, blue eyes. "Amelia, darling." Eleanor purred, her voice dripping with a false affection that Amelia had long learned to distrust. "Surprise?" Amelia forced a smile. "Mom. What are you doing here?" Eleanor stepped forward, as if expecting Amelia to move aside and welcome her in. Amelia didn't budge. "It's my granddaughter's birthday, isn't it?" Eleanor's smile tightened slightly. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." "You weren't invited," Amelia stated, her voice flat. She had made a conscious decision, years ago, to limit Eleanor's contact with Lily. Eleanor's manipulative nature and constant need for control were toxic, and Amelia was determined to protect her daughter from the same emotional abuse she had endured growing up. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "That's hardly the way to speak to your mother, Amelia." Amelia sighed, the familiar weariness settling in. "You're not really my mother, Mom. You gave birth to me, yes, but that's about it. You were never there for me. You were always too busy with other things." The other things hung unspoken between them: Eleanor's string of failed relationships, her obsession with appearances, her relentless pursuit of wealth and status, all at the expense of her daughter's well-being. Eleanor scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Amelia. Lily adores me. She sees me as her grandmother." Amelia's jaw tightened. "You haven't seen Lily in over a year. You don't get to just waltz in here and pretend you're a part of her life." And then, Eleanor dropped the bomb. "Actually, Amelia, I've been thinking. It's time Lily started calling me Mommy. After all, I'm just as much a mother figure to her as you are." Amelia stared at her, momentarily speechless. The audacity of the statement, the sheer delusion, was breathtaking. She let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're unbelievable. You're absolutely unbelievable." Eleanor lifted her chin, her expression hardening. "I'm serious, Amelia. It's only fair." Amelia's mind raced. Images flashed through her memory. Eleanor leaving her alone for days on end as a child, Eleanor dismissing her tears and fears, Eleanor prioritizing her boyfriends over her own daughter's needs, Eleanor constantly criticizing and belittling her, making her feel worthless. And now, this. This woman, who had never shown her an ounce of genuine love or support, was demanding to be called Mommy by her daughter. "You're just in time for the cake," Amelia said, a strange calmness settling over her. She stepped aside, allowing Eleanor to enter. Eleanor, clearly surprised by Amelia's sudden acquiescence, gave her a suspicious look but stepped inside. The party was in full swing. Children shrieked with laughter, parents chatted amicably, and upbeat music played from a portable speaker. Lily, spotting Eleanor, paused in her game of tag, her expression shifting from joy to confusion. Eleanor strode towards Lily, her arms outstretched. "Lily, darling. Come give your mommy a hug." Before Lily could react, before Eleanor could reach her, a series of sharp raps echoed from the front door. Eleanor frowned, her carefully constructed facade momentarily crumbling. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice laced with irritation. Amelia crossed her arms, a faint smile playing on her lips. "That, Mom, would be the authorities." Eleanor's eyes widened. "The authorities? What are you talking about?" The door opened, and two uniformed officers entered the house. The party chatter died down, replaced by a hushed silence. Parents turned to look, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. The officers approached Eleanor, their faces serious. "Eleanor Vance," one of them asked. Eleanor's face drained of color. She took a step back, her hands trembling. I don't understand. What's going on?" "We have a warrant for your arrest, ma'am," the officer said, his voice calm but firm. "You're being charged with harassment and violation of a restraining order." The scream that erupted from Eleanor was a primal sound, a mixture of rage, fear, and disbelief. It sent shivers down Amelia's spine, even though she had been anticipating this moment for weeks. "What?" Eleanor shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is insane. Amelia, what have you done?" Amelia didn't answer. She simply watched as the officers moved to restrain Eleanor, who struggled and thrashed like a cornered animal. "You ungrateful little brat." Eleanor spat, her eyes wild with fury. "You set me up. You're trying to ruin me." Lily, standing near the edge of the group, began to cry, her small face crumpled with fear and confusion. Amelia quickly went to her daughter, kneeling down and wrapping her arms around her. "It's okay, sweetie," Amelia whispered, stroking Lily's hair. "Everything's going to be okay." But even as she said the words, Amelia knew it wasn't entirely true. This was just the beginning. The officers led Eleanor out of the house, her protests and accusations echoing in the stunned silence. The party, needless to say, was over. The other parents, after offering Amelia their awkward condolences and assurances, quickly gathered their children and left. Once the house was empty, Amelia sank onto the sofa, Lily still clinging to her. The adrenaline that had fueled her through the confrontation was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. "Mommy, what happened?" Lily asked, her voice muffled against Amelia's shoulder. "Why did those police officers take Grandma away?" Amelia hesitated. How could she explain this to an 8-year-old? How could she explain the years of emotional abuse, the constant manipulation, the relentless need for control that had defined Eleanor's relationship with her? "Grandma did some bad things, sweetie," Amelia finally said. "She wasn't being very nice to Mommy, and she broke some rules. The police had to take her away to keep her from hurting anyone else." Lily was silent for a moment, processing this information. "Will she come back?" Amelia squeezed her daughter tighter. "No, sweetie. She won't be coming back." The restraining order had been Amelia's last resort. After years of trying to set boundaries, after countless attempts to reason with Eleanor, after enduring a constant barrage of harassing phone calls, emails, and unannounced visits, Amelia had finally realized that she needed legal protection. Eleanor had never accepted Amelia's attempts to distance herself. She saw it as a personal betrayal, a rejection of her authority. She had become increasingly obsessed with controlling Amelia's life, even going so far as to show up at her workplace, spreading lies about her to her colleagues, and attempting to interfere with her relationships. The final straw had come a few weeks earlier, when Eleanor had shown up at Lily's school, demanding to take her out for lunch. Amelia had received a frantic call from the school principal, and she had raced over, her heart pounding with fear. She had confronted Eleanor, and the ensuing argument had escalated into a shouting match in the school parking lot. That was when Amelia had decided she had had enough. She had gone to the police, filed a report, and requested a restraining order. The judge had granted it, citing Eleanor's history of harassment and her increasingly erratic behavior. Amelia had hoped that the restraining order would be enough to deter Eleanor, to finally make her understand that she couldn't continue to intrude on their lives. But she had underestimated her mother's determination, her relentless need to control, her complete disregard for the law. The days following Eleanor's arrest were a blur of legal consultations, police interviews, and whispered conversations with Lily's school counselor. Amelia felt like she was walking on eggshells, constantly looking over her shoulder, waiting for the next shoe to drop. She knew Eleanor wouldn't go down without a fight. She was a master manipulator, a skilled liar, and she had a network of enablers who were always willing to believe her version of events. Amelia's fears were confirmed a few days later, when she received a series of anonymous text messages. "You think you've won, Amelia? You're wrong. This is just the beginning. You'll regret crossing me. I promise you that. Watch your back. You're going down." The messages were chilling, and they confirmed Amelia's suspicion that Eleanor was still pulling strings, even from behind bars. She had someone on the outside, someone who was willing to do her dirty work. Amelia immediately forwarded the messages to her lawyer, who advised her to report them to the police. The police, however, were less than helpful. They told her that without knowing the identity of the sender, there was little they could do. Amelia felt frustrated and helpless. She knew she was in danger, but she didn't know how to protect herself or Lily. Then, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lily, who had been unusually quiet and withdrawn since the incident at the party, came to Amelia one evening with a troubled expression. "Mommy," she said. "Grandma sent me a message." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. "What? How?" Lily pulled out her tablet, a device Amelia had given her for educational games and video calls with her friends. She opened a messaging app, one Amelia didn't recognize. "She sent me this," Lily said, showing Amelia the screen. The message was from an anonymous account, but the language and tone were unmistakably Eleanor's. "Lily, darling, don't listen to your mother. She's lying to you. I'm your real mommy, and I'm coming to get you. We'll be together soon, just you and me." Amelia felt a surge of anger and fear. Eleanor was not only harassing her, but she was also trying to manipulate her daughter, to turn her against her. This was war. Amelia took the tablet to a computer forensics expert, a friend of a friend who specialized in recovering digital data and tracking online activity. The expert, a young woman named Sarah, examined the tablet and the messaging app. "This is interesting," Sarah said, after a few hours of work. "The app is designed to be untraceable, but there are a few clues. The account was created using a burner phone, a prepaid mobile phone that's difficult to trace. But the phone was purchased at a convenience store near the jail where your mother is being held." Sarah also discovered that the account had been used to access several other online platforms, including social media sites and email services. She was able to recover some deleted messages and files, which revealed a disturbing pattern of communication between Eleanor and an unknown individual. The messages were cryptic, but they clearly indicated that Eleanor was plotting something, that she was planning to retaliate against Amelia. "This is enough to get a warrant," Sarah said. "We can subpoena the convenience store's security footage and identify the person who purchased the burner phone. We can also track the IP addresses used to access the online accounts." Amelia felt a glimmer of hope. Finally, she had some concrete evidence, something she could use to fight back. The security footage from the convenience store was grainy, but it was clear enough to identify the person who had purchased the burner phone. A middle-aged man with a receding hairline and a distinctive limp. Amelia didn't recognize him, but she had a hunch. She showed the footage to her lawyer, who agreed that it was worth investigating. "We need to find out who this man is," Amelia said. "He's clearly working with my mother." The lawyer hired a private investigator, a seasoned professional named Mark Reynolds, to track down the man in the video. Reynolds, a former police detective, had a knack for finding people who didn't want to be found. It took several days, but Reynolds eventually identified the man. Richard "Rick" Dalton, a former business associate of Eleanor's. Dalton had a history of shady dealings, and he had been implicated in several fraud schemes, although he had never been convicted. Reynolds discovered that Dalton had been visiting Eleanor in jail regularly, and he had been making large cash withdrawals from his bank accounts in the weeks leading up to Eleanor's arrest. "It looks like your mother was paying him to do her dirty work," Reynolds said. "He's probably the one who sent those threatening messages and contacted Lily." Amelia felt a surge of anger. She had been right all along. Eleanor was using someone else to carry out her vendetta. The police, armed with the new evidence, obtained a warrant to search Dalton's apartment. They found the burner phone used to contact Lily, as well as a laptop containing numerous incriminating files, including emails from Eleanor outlining her plans to discredit Amelia and regain custody of Lily. Dalton was arrested and charged with conspiracy, harassment, and aiding and abetting a violation of a restraining order. He initially denied any involvement, but when confronted with the overwhelming evidence, he quickly cracked. He confessed that Eleanor had promised him a large sum of money if he helped her get rid of Amelia. He admitted to sending the threatening messages, contacting Lily, and even attempting to hack into Amelia's bank accounts. "She's crazy," Dalton said, shaking his head. "She's completely obsessed with getting her daughter back. She said she'd do anything to destroy Amelia." Dalton's confession was the final nail in Eleanor's coffin. Her bail was revoked, and she was remanded back into custody. With Eleanor and Dalton behind bars, Amelia finally felt like she could breathe again. But she knew that the damage Eleanor had caused wouldn't be easily undone. Lily was still traumatized by the events, and she was having nightmares and difficulty sleeping. Amelia enrolled her in therapy, and she spent countless hours reassuring her daughter that she was safe and loved. Amelia also had to deal with the fallout from Eleanor's lies and manipulations. She had to contact her employer and explain the situation, and she had to reassure her friends and colleagues that she was not the person Eleanor had portrayed her to be. It was a long and arduous process, but Amelia was determined to rebuild her life and protect her daughter. The trial of Eleanor and Dalton was a media circus. Eleanor, ever the drama queen, played the victim, claiming that Amelia was a mentally unstable and unfit mother who had fabricated the entire story to get her out of the way. But the evidence against her was overwhelming. The text messages, the emails, the security footage, Dalton's confession, it all painted a clear picture of Eleanor's guilt. The jury found Eleanor guilty of all charges, including harassment, violation of a restraining order, and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Dalton, who had cooperated with the prosecution, received a lighter sentence of 2 years. As Eleanor was led away from the courtroom, she turned to Amelia and spat. "You haven't won. I'll be back. And when I get out, I'll take Lily away from you. You'll never see her again." Amelia didn't flinch. She simply stared at her mother, her expression devoid of emotion. "You're wrong, Mom," she said. "You've already lost. You lost the moment you chose your own selfish desires over my well-being, and over Lily's. You'll never have power over us again." Even with Eleanor incarcerated and Dalton out of the picture, a lingering unease persisted in Amelia's life. The years of manipulation and gaslighting had left deep scars. She found herself constantly second-guessing her own judgment, struggling with anxiety, and overprotective of Lily. David, her partner, was a constant source of support, but he couldn't fully understand the depth of the trauma she had endured. One recurring issue was Lily's questions about Eleanor. While Lily understood that her grandmother had done bad things, she was still a child, and her understanding of the situation was understandably incomplete. Amelia struggled to balance honesty with protecting Lily from the full, ugly truth. She didn't want Lily to grow up hating Eleanor, but she also didn't want to sugarcoat the reality of the abuse. One day, Lily, now 12, came home from school upset. "Some kids were talking about Grandma," she said, her voice trembling. "They said she was a criminal and that she tried to kidnap me. Is that true?" Amelia sat down with Lily and took a deep breath. This was the conversation she had been dreading. It's complicated. She began. Your grandma did some things that were wrong, and she broke the law. She wasn't trying to kidnap you, exactly, but she was trying to control you and me. She wasn't thinking clearly, and she wasn't being a good person. Lily was silent for a moment, absorbing this. But why? Why would she do that? Amelia struggled to find the right words. Sometimes, people have problems in their minds, Lily. They have a hard time understanding what's right and wrong, and they hurt other people because of it. Your grandma, she had a lot of problems. And she made some very bad choices. Do you hate her? Lily asked, her eyes searching Amelia's face. Amelia hesitated. Hate is a strong word. I'm angry at what she did. I'm sad that she couldn't be the mother I needed. But I don't want to waste my energy hating her. I'd rather focus on making sure you have a happy and healthy life. This conversation, though difficult, marked a turning point. It opened the door for more honest and open communication between Amelia and Lily about Eleanor. Amelia started to share more of her own experiences, age-appropriately, of course, helping Lily to understand the pattern of Eleanor's behavior and the importance of setting boundaries. Another challenge Amelia faced was dealing with the lingering whispers and judgments from some members of the community. Even though the truth had come out, some people still clung to Eleanor's version of events, or simply enjoyed gossiping about the scandal. Amelia learned to ignore the whispers and focus on the people who supported her. She built a strong network of friends, colleagues, and neighbors who understood her situation and offered unconditional love and acceptance. She also found solace in a support group for survivors of narcissistic abuse, where she connected with other women who had experienced similar traumas. 5 years after Eleanor's release from prison, Amelia stood on the porch of her new home, a small, charming cottage in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. She and David had married 2 years earlier, and they had created a warm and loving home for Lily, who was now a thriving teenager. Amelia had received a few letters from Eleanor over the years, each one filled with the same mixture of self-pity, accusations, and manipulative pleas for forgiveness. Amelia had stopped reading them. She had learned that engaging with Eleanor, even in the smallest way, was like opening a Pandora's box of negativity and drama. She had also heard, through the grapevine, that Eleanor was struggling. She had alienated most of her former friends and associates, and she was living a lonely and isolated existence. Amelia felt a pang of sympathy, but she knew that she couldn't allow herself to be drawn back into Eleanor's orbit. Lily, now 17, was preparing to graduate from high school. She was a bright, confident, and compassionate young woman, with a strong sense of self and a clear understanding of healthy relationships. She had chosen to have no contact with Eleanor, a decision Amelia fully supported. As Amelia watched Lily laughing and chatting with her friends on the lawn, she felt a sense of profound peace and gratitude. She had survived the storm. She had broken the cycle of abuse. She had built a life filled with love, joy, and genuine connection. The shadow of the past still lingered, but it no longer defined her. She had learned to live with the scars, to embrace her resilience, and to focus on the future. She had learned that forgiveness was not about condoning the abuser's actions, but about releasing herself from the burden of anger and resentment. She had also learned the importance of setting boundaries, of protecting herself and her loved ones from toxic people, no matter who they were. She had learned that true family was not about blood ties, but about love, loyalty, and mutual respect. As the sun set, casting a warm golden glow over the scene, Amelia smiled. She had found her happily ever after, not in spite of the challenges she had faced, but because of them. She had emerged from the darkness stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live a life filled with light and love. The inheritance of lies had been replaced by an inheritance of truth, resilience, and unwavering hope. A few months after Lily's high school graduation, Amelia received a phone call that she had both dreaded and, in a strange way, anticipated. It was from a social worker at a local homeless shelter. Ms. Vance, or, I suppose it's Mrs. Miller now. The social worker began hesitantly. We have a woman here who claims to be your mother, Eleanor Vance. She's not in good shape. Amelia felt a familiar mix of emotions. A flicker of pity, a surge of anger, and a deep-seated weariness. She had hoped to never hear from Eleanor again, but she knew, deep down, that this day might come. What's happened? Amelia asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The social worker explained that Eleanor had been found living on the streets, suffering from malnutrition, dehydration, and a number of untreated health issues. She had been brought to the shelter, where she had reluctantly given Amelia's name as her emergency contact. She's refusing medical treatment. The social worker continued. She's quite delusional. She keeps talking about her granddaughter, Lily, and how she needs to see her. Amelia sighed. This was classic Eleanor. Even in her deteriorated state, she was still trying to manipulate and control. I'll come, Amelia said. But I need to speak to Lily first. Lily, who was now working a summer job before starting college, was initially hesitant to see Eleanor. She had made peace with her decision to have no contact, and she was understandably afraid of reopening old wounds. I don't want to see her, Mom, Lily said, her voice firm. She hurt us. She hurt you. I don't owe her anything. Amelia understood Lily's feelings, but she also felt a sense of responsibility. She couldn't simply abandon Eleanor, even after everything she had done. I know, sweetie, Amelia said. And you don't have to see her. But I think I need to. For my own closure. And maybe, in a way, for hers. After a long discussion, Lily surprised Amelia. I'll go with you, she said. But on my terms. I want to see her, but I want to be in control of the situation. I want to tell her how I feel. Amelia was proud of Lily's strength and courage. She agreed that Lily should have the opportunity to confront Eleanor, if that's what she wanted. They went to the shelter together, accompanied by David, who offered his unwavering support. The scene that greeted them was heartbreaking. Eleanor was a shadow of her former self. Her once glamorous appearance was gone, replaced by a gaunt, haggard look. Her eyes, once sharp and calculating, were now dull and unfocused. Eleanor was sitting on a cot in a small, sparsely furnished room. When she saw Amelia and Lily, a flicker of recognition crossed her face. Amelia? Lily? She croaked, her voice weak and raspy. You came. Amelia stepped forward, but Lily held up her hand. I'm here, Grandma, Lily said, her voice clear and strong. But not because you want me to be. I'm here because I choose to be. Eleanor looked confused, her brow furrowed. But I'm your mommy. You need to be with me. Lily shook her head. No, you're not. You were never my mommy. You were my grandmother, and you were a bad one. You hurt my mom, and you hurt me. You lied, you manipulated, and you tried to control us. And I'm not going to let you do that anymore. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. But I love you, she whispered. Lily stood firm. Love isn't about control, Grandma. It's about respect and trust and kindness. And you never showed us any of those things. Amelia watched, her heart aching for both her daughter and her mother. She knew that this confrontation was necessary, but it was also incredibly painful. Amelia stepped forward and addressed Eleanor. Mom, she said, her voice calm but firm. You need help. You need medical treatment, and you need therapy. We can't give you that, but we can help you get it. We can help you find a place to live, and we can help you get the care you need. But you have to want it. You have to be willing to accept responsibility for your actions and try to change. Eleanor looked at Amelia, her eyes searching her face. For a moment, Amelia thought she saw a glimmer of hope, a flicker of understanding. But then, the familiar mask of denial and self-pity returned. It's all your fault, Eleanor mumbled. You turned her against me. You stole my granddaughter. Amelia sighed. She had tried. She had offered Eleanor a chance at redemption, but Eleanor had refused to take it. Lily stepped forward again. This is goodbye, Grandma, she said, her voice unwavering. I hope you find peace, but I can't be a part of your life anymore. I need to protect myself, and I need to move on. Lily turned and walked out of the room, followed by David. Amelia lingered for a moment, looking at her mother one last time. Goodbye, Mom, she said softly. Then, she turned and followed her family, leaving Eleanor alone in her self-made prison of bitterness and regret. Amelia walked out of the shelter and into the bright sunshine, taking a deep breath of fresh air. The weight she had carried for so long, the weight of her mother's toxic influence, finally felt lifted. She slipped her hand into David's, and then reached for Lily's, their fingers intertwining. They walked together, not looking back, towards a future they had built themselves, a future filled with love, respect, and the unbreakable bonds of a chosen family. The past was finally, truly, behind them.